All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Today's going to be a little bit of a different class, actually. So first things first, I realized that it was pointed out to me that I had the wrong due date on the legal analysis, that it was Monday the 5th, which is not a date. So, if you can get it in tonight, great. If you get it in tomorrow, that's also perfectly fine. Again, this is more of a rough draft than anything else. Just please have it to me before the Wednesday day off. Turns out we have a day off on Wednesday. Not going to lie to you, forgot about that until about noon today. So we don't have class on Wednesday. Enjoy some semblance of a spring break. So, and then next week, we are not going to be in class. We have class, but we will not be in class. It's because on Monday, we're going to be going over oral arguments. And on Wednesday, we'll actually be doing oral arguments. We got good news and bad news on the oral argument front. Number one, you will only have class for the actual time slot that you are assigned. There's going to be assigned about a 10-minute time slot where we can get everything done. I normally do pairs for these, but because you guys can't really work in tandem in the way you typically do, you guys can't get together during class, it's honestly easier just to do one-on-one. And I will be doing a pattern for that tonight, and hopefully posting it tomorrow so you guys know what we're doing. But the oral argument is going to be the speaking intensive portion of the class. It's how we fulfill that little SI moniker on your course catalog. And the oral argument is really a way for you to take a position on a legal issue, apply what we've learned in class so far, and answer questions back from you. We're going to be looking at some examples here in a second of an actual Supreme Court oral argument, which is what this is going to be based on. But before we even get to that, I want to walk you through kind of how we do persuasive arguing. How do you convince somebody that your position is right on a particular topic? Aaron asked if we turn it in tomorrow, will you still get feedback from me? The answer is yes, you will. With the persuasive argument, what I want to do, and it's a little, again, it is not nearly as easy as it normally is with only a few people in class and here. But I would like as much class participation as I can possibly get, even if it's just typing it in via chat, so that we can really get to, can kind of walk you through how you formulate an argument, how you defend it. And the age-old question that I have had with my friend who was in media law and ethics with me in 2009, and we've argued about it darn near ever since, is the age-old question of, is a hot dog a sandwich? Simple, right? It's a yes or no question. This is not something that we can scientifically prove, right? We are not in a 2 + 2 = 4. This is something that is open for debate. That is language, and language is open for debate, right? So I'm curious. Anybody have a strong opinion? I know what my very strong opinion is. You will not know it until we're done, but does anybody have a strong opinion as to whether a hot dog is a sandwich? Yeah. Okay. Alice says it is a question, or is a sandwich.
It is not a sandwich.
Okay, so Alice says it is not a sandwich. We got two yeses. All right, so logically speaking, on a personal level, you hate the outcome, right? It just feels bad in your bones, but you just can't get around that it's a sandwich. So before we even get to the end question of is it a sandwich, what's the first thing we have to do? What is a sandwich? Can anybody give me a one sentence, maybe two if you're feeling brave, a 1 or 2 sentence definition as to what you believe a sandwich to be? Yeah.
A piece of bread has
a piece of bread that has meat, or whatever. I like that. So does that mean a turkey club is not a sandwich? How many pieces of bread are in a turkey club? 2 pieces. You said 8 pieces of bread. I know. I love dessert. Dessert is my absolute favorite part of any meal. I have no shame in admitting that. And one of my favorite things to have for dessert is a cookie, some ice cream, and a cookie beneath it. What do you guys call that? An ice cream sandwich. We got meat, right? And trust me, I'm not saying you're in any way wrong. What is a sandwich is not something that we can prove with a scientific fact. Ella says that it's 2 things of bread with something in between. Okay, so we got bread, right? Any type of bread? Any dough? Anything with gluten or not gluten? So let me give you an example of something that is a single piece of bread or bread-like substance. It is a single handheld container with, say, ground meat and cheese and lettuce and tomato inside. What do we call that? Taco. If a hot dog is a sandwich, can anybody think of a logical reason that a taco is not a sandwich? Meat, it's a bread or bread-like substance. Okay, well, it's not your traditional bread, so does it have to be leavened bread? You need to have yeast involved. So can there be any gluten-free sandwiches? It's not as simple as you might think. So we all have this idea of we kind of know instinctually, right? Is a hot dog a sandwich? Yes, no, yes, no. But your answer about this needs to fit in with a logical consistency. So if you think a hot dog is a sandwich, that is great. But you need to explain to me why a hot dog is a sandwich but a taco isn't. Or is a taco a sandwich? I have a friend. And this is my friend whom I dearly love. Yet I crap on him every single semester, but I really do love him. He believes that anything that is encased in any type of dough or pastry or anything like that is considered a sandwich. So when I go to an Italian restaurant and I see ravioli on the menu, and I love ravioli, and I get a ravioli, my friend Joel is going to say, you just got a sandwich. Because those little raviolis are pieces of meat encased in some type of dough substance. Let me show you an example of what I am talking about. So I got to do this twice. I apologize. So it's kind of an annoying thing about doing this 2 ways. All right. This is what we call an alignment chart, right? How do different people define what is a sandwich? And this is a really good way, and I know this is kind of silly, but this is a really good way, right? We look at the structure. Do you need 1 piece of bread? Do you need 2 pieces of bread? Can anything, does it have to be bread? Like, does it have to be wheat and flour combined with yeast and put in a oven? Or can it be a bread-like substance, like a cookie or tortilla or dough? Do ingredients matter? Do they need to be savory? Do they need to be sweet? Do they even need to be meat? And so that's going to be the first thing that we need to look at. And we're going to be looking at an actual legal question when you guys are arguing. But you need to be very prepared for, if you want my answer, if you want me to agree with your answer, you need to walk me through why I agree with you. You need to have a sound, fundamental foundation of what your theory is. So let me give you an example. This is a real world example. We understand that we have religious freedom in this country, right? It is a fundamental bedrock of the United States of America. And so the government is unable to restrict religion for the sake of restricting a religion. However, we also understand that I can't just say religion, religion, and religion and get away with whatever I want. I can discriminate, I can murder, I can speed, I can jaywalk because I have accepted a particular religion. So if the question before a court is, for example, with COVID happening, can the state limit religious services? And the answer is going to be yes or no, right? They can limit, they can't limit, or they can limit within certain parameters. First thing you need to do is come up with an idea of how does religion need to be treated? Should it be treated with special protection or no protection? And if it is special protection, is the government then going to be in a position of determining what is a valid religious belief? That's going to cause a lot of problems, isn't it? If we get to say, well, Christianity is okay, but this weird religion that you just came up with, that can't be okay. The Pastafarians of the world, or the Scientologists. And I'm not diminishing Pastafarians or Scientology any more than I'm denigrating Christians or Jews. Because the government, because then we run into the question of, can the government pick and choose what religion is valid and what is not? And if religion is a fundamental right, or should be subservient to health and safety, we saw over the summer, there were certainly overreaches by certain governments in terms of tamping down protests, but there was never any idea that the United States of America, that governments could shut down protests, the Black Lives Matter, George Floyd protests, because of COVID. That the idea of protest was more important than health and safety. Religion and speech, and religion and protest, religion and petition are all in the same amendment. So can you treat protests more validly than religion? So these are like real questions you have to, and that's why it's important to have a firm understanding. Because one of the things that we're going to do is when we get into this oral argument, I'm going to say, well, if this is true, then doesn't this also have to be true? If a hot dog is a sandwich, then doesn't a taco also need to be a sandwich? And I'm not saying you got to agree with me, right? There are a lot of reasons why a taco is different from a hot dog, but you need to tell me what those things are. And so that's why that's kind of like I use this sandwich thing, because it's nice and simple and fun, but really does illustrate the difficulty of being able to understand your argument and be able to differentiate it from others and really convince me why you're right. Now, one of the things that I will definitely say to you is when we do our oral argument next week, next Wednesday, when we do our oral argument next week, I am not grading you on whether or not I think you are right. I'm grading you on the effectiveness through which you argue your point. Now, is anybody curious as to whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich? A hot dog is not a sandwich, and I will defend that until the day that I die. There are two reasons for this. Actually, there's one primary reason for this. Sandwich has a meaning outside of the food context, does it not? You're in a middle seat on a flight to London, and you're between very smelly people. You want to get out of there. What do you say? I am sandwiched in this middle seat between two people that I cannot stand. Then we get a hug and think, man, I'm sandwiched by this person. No. Sandwich requires two distinct pieces of bread with something in between. Now, it doesn't have to be meat. It doesn't have to be anything like that, but it does need to be two distinct pieces. So ice cream sandwich is a sandwich. A grilled cheese is a sandwich. A hamburger is a sandwich. A taco is a sandwich. And now I hear you say, John, what does that mean about Subway? Subway is a lie. Subway does not serve sandwiches. They serve hoagies. And just because they have a marketing department doesn't mean that they get to redefine language. So, how far has this argument taken me in my life? I have done legal research on this, and in the District Court of New York in 2011, a federal court found that Mediterranean, like pita pockets, were not considered sandwiches. They were not considered sandwich shops or selling sandwiches. So, that is the final answer, at least in my opinion, as to whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich. The answer is no, it is not. Someday I'll bring my friend Joel in and he can tell me all the reasons that I am wrong. But, does anybody have any questions about how that works? That's kind of what I was trying to illustrate. And we're about to look at some actual real world examples, okay, as to how this plays out in the Supreme Court. So, give me 1 second. Again, this is much more difficult than I would like for it to be because of trying to do this twice, but it is what it is, okay. All right, mute myself over here.
The Supreme Court. Their latest term began earlier this month, and it's going to be one to watch. Unfortunately, we won't actually be able to watch any of it because the Supreme Court does not allow cameras during oral arguments. And I'll let Justice Scalia explain why.
If I really thought it would educate the American people, I would be all for it. But what most of the American people would see would be 30-second, 15-second takeouts from our argument, and those takeouts would not be characteristic of what we do.
You know, he might be right about that. Television can be very irresponsible, which is why you never want to, for instance, do an interview in front of a blue screen because someone might then superimpose a creepy orgy behind you because that's the sort of terrible thing that television can do. So the point is, there aren't any cameras, but they do release audio recordings of their arguments, so TV does play 15-second clips of the Supreme Court anyway. It's just that they have to present it like this.
Suppose a state said, because we think that the focus of marriage really should be on procreation, we're not going to give marriage licenses anymore to any couple where both people are over the age of 55. Would that be constitutional?
Okay, for a start, that is a terrible rendering of Justice Kagan. You just made her look like Jonah Hill in a wig. And also, it was boring. And that's a problem, because what happens at the Supreme Court is way too important not to pay attention to. And yet, the ban renders any coverage basically unwatchable. But I think we may have a solution, and it's learning a lesson from this. Think about it. If someone made you just listen to the audio of that, you would punch them repeatedly in the face. But the visual makes it irresistible. Why? Because a cat's paws are doing things you wouldn't expect them to do. And if it works for shitty piano music, it can work for the Supreme Court. And that is why, this week, we spent an incredible amount of time and an almost immoral amount of resources to produce an entire Supreme Court featuring real animals with fake paws. Settle down, settle down, settle down. Let me show you this puppy in action. One of the current cases in the court is Holt versus Hobbs. It's about whether a prison can require a Muslim inmate to trim his beard for security reasons. Now, you may be thinking, John, I do not want to hear a discussion about that. Really? Don't you?
Now, let's assume I'm in a religion that requires polygamy. I mean, could I say to the prison, well, okay, yeah, I won't have 3 wives, just let me have 2 wives. I mean, you're still violating your religion, it seems to me, if he allows his beard to be clipped to one inch, isn't it?
Well, it is the state's burden that is explicit in the statute. You know, the only limit to they impose on the hair on top of your head is it can't extend below the middle of the neck. The difference between hair on top of your head and hair on the front of your head is not even rational.
Be honest, you now want to hear the entire hour-long oral argument, don't you? Well, no. But I will give you just another taste.
Well, as far as searching the beard is concerned, why can't the prison just give the inmate a comb? You could develop whatever kind of comb you want and say, comb your beard. And if there's anything in there, if there's a SIM card in there or a revolver or anything else you think can be hidden in a half-inch beard, tiny revolver, it'll fall out.
Those dry constitutional arguments are now must-see television. And that is why tonight, as a public service, we are releasing raw video at this address of close-ups, medium shots and wide shots from our Real Animals Fake Paw Supreme Court. And we are inviting all news networks to use this footage to make Supreme Court arguments more compelling to watch. We have all 9 justices for you. Chief Justice Roberts, there's Scalia, Kennedy, Thomas, Ginsburg, Breyer, Alito, Sotomayor, and Kagan, who, I will warn you, would not sit still. And we have almost everything you need for full coverage. You need Justice Alito taking notes? Done, not a problem. You need Ginsburg adjusting her glasses? You got it. You need Samuel Alito having a drink of water? No problem. You need Roberts yawning? He'll yawn for you. You need Alito covering his ears with his paws, or banging a gavel, or humping Eleanor Kagan. We have all of those things. Why? Because the Alito dog was f***ing amazing. Plus, we have 2 lawyers for you to choose from, also a duck assistant and a court stenographer who's just doing the best she can to keep up. The entire toolkit is here for anyone to do with as they please. And if there are not full reenactments of every major court case of the past 4 years online by next Sunday, you will never see us here again.
Okay, so that was a little bit silly, but that is basically what you guys are going to be doing, is arguing in front of a fake Supreme Court. And by Supreme Court, I mean over Zoom. But what we will, and what I will be doing this week is recording just a very brief video for you guys. It's not going to be, it's frankly better for me to do it not masked, because this will not be masked. You guys will be doing this over Zoom where I can see your face and all of that fun stuff. But going over kind of how a Supreme Court oral argument works and how you want to be able to really, I don't want to say this, be able to defend the constitutionality of a position and things like that. Now, before we go any further at all, I do not expect you guys to be polished Supreme Court advocates. Just like with this legal analysis, you are not in law school. I do not expect for you to be one. However, this is not a presentation. Every semester, I get people who, when I start asking them questions, get this deer in headlights like, oh my God, he's talking to me, what do I do? Which is understandable, right? I imagine public speaking is, what I found is media students, by and large, tend to gravitate towards filmmaking because they don't like talking. They prefer to be behind the camera, they prefer to be, and that's not a universal truth, but it's certainly enough where it seems to be a common theme. So get yourself in that mindset, right? You and I will be talking, and I will be asking you about your position, and I will be quizzing you on the law, and I will be, kind of probing what your argument would entail. It's important that you know that you want to think about the topic that I'm going to be giving you in broad strokes. When we're looking at an oral argument, when, especially one in front of the Supreme Court, they don't really give a darn about the individuals. This is the Supreme Court. They have far more important things to do than settle a dispute between two private people or a backwater county in Alabama and somebody that they arrested, right? That's just not what they're doing. They are instead trying to rule on a broader question of law. So have that in mind. But we'll talk about that more when I send it out, and I will be doing a video for you guys. And I will also let you guys know that we will not have class on Monday, so that you guys have Monday to prepare. Now it's gonna be, yeah. No, not Zooming on Monday. You guys are going to have, because I want to give you guys don't get a spring break. The semester sucks. I'm giving you a spring break necessarily, but normally what I would do is take Monday to allow you guys to work in small groups on your presentation before we do it on Wednesday. Can't do that right now. So take Monday, use it. We will not be actually having class on Monday. And then we'll be doing the actual oral argument on Wednesday. So that's kind of, because sometimes I do it, half the class on Monday, half the class on Wednesday. I would prefer just to have you guys do it all in one day. It's gonna be a long day for me, but it means that everybody has the same time to prepare. Sound good? Awesome. So let's talk about commercial speech. That is what today's topic is going to be about. When I can find it, please give me a second. Why it logged me out, I'm not entirely sure, but here we go. All right. All right, so it would appear as though Google Meets does not want me to actually play video clips in PowerPoint, because that is incredibly helpful in a hybrid class situation. But what we're going to do for the rest of class for the next 40 minutes or so is talk about commercial speech. Commercial speech is speech done for the purpose of selling a product, essentially ads. And sometimes those ads are incredibly easy to identify. Most programs still have nice and helpful advertising breaks between football games or in the middle of our favorite TV shows. So if I were able to play this clip, I would show you that we have a Frosted Mini Wheats commercial. Frosted Mini Wheats, there's a nice, fun little scene where the teacher is asking where she had left off, and a student raises his hand and says, "You were on page 73 on line 4," and goes to a very specific, resuscitation of where they were in the class. And the idea is that he ate Frosted Mini Wheats, and that's amazing, and therefore he is smarter. And they come on with a little tag at the end and said, according to a scientific study, students who had a healthy, fulfilling breakfast of Frosted Mini Wheats cereal were 24% more attentive in school than students who did not. Does anybody believe that if you eat Frosted Mini Wheats cereal, you will be a better student? No. You want to know something else? That's not what the study showed. What the study showed was kids who eat breakfast are 24% more likely to be attentive in school. Now, do people buy that? That's at least logical, right? And then we get into this whole conversation of causality versus correlation. Are you actually paying attention because you're full, or are you paying attention because you come from a home that provides breakfast? And homes that provide breakfast, by and large, are better environments for study habits. What we can all agree is that you don't get magic powers of attentiveness when eating Frosted Mini Wheat cereal. Now, this is misleading as heck when you say Frosted Mini Wheat cereal, right? Because it leads you to believe that there is something special about your particular breakfast cereal. Now, that is a half-truth at best, maybe even an outright lie. Do we allow lies on TV? Yes, we certainly do. Political speech. I get up on, I make an advertisement that grossly mischaracterizes my opponent's position on a particular political issue. Can I be sued for that? The answer is no. Because we do not want the government interjecting itself in determining truth versus fiction when it comes to political debate. Instead, if somebody says something untrue or half-true or anything like that, so long as it's not defamatory, so long as it's not libelous, we're just going to let the other side have their day in the public square and be able to refute that to the best of their ability. I brought up Pastafarians earlier. People who believe in the flying spaghetti monster. The government is not going to be in a position saying that's dumb, we're going to ban it. Because once the government starts determining what is and is not a religious belief that is valid, we got some issues. Now, we also have some areas of speech that there is no protection given at all. Obscenity, fighting words, incitement, true threats. We talked about those earlier on in the semester. Now, commercial speech falls somewhere in the middle. It is entitled to some protection, but not full protection. So we need to get some history here. Now, for most areas of speech, the class, like obviously the case law has changed, right? We've seen that with obscenity. What was considered obscenity before the current test that we have was different. And so like things evolve, things change. We have a different student speech code under Morse versus Frederick than maybe we did in Tinker or Fighting Words with Chaplinsky, right? Don't expect you guys to remember all those case names. The point is we have an evolution. Commercial speech is one of those rare areas in constitutional law, especially when it comes to the speech context, where something was considered unprotected speech and became pseudo-protected speech. The history, and again, don't expect you to know the history all that well. What you guys need to know is that there was a guy in the 1920s who got a World War I summary. It was an actual World War I summary, or World War I summary. And he was passing out literature, and he said, hey, for your nickel, come see my World War I summary, and you can go on, you can bring the kids, it'll be a grand old time for everybody. Nobody was alleging that what he was doing was illegal, like the actual showing of the summary. He was not being misleading, he was not being aggressive. He was saying, I got this thing, would you please bring your 5 cents to me so we can have an exchange of goods and services? It's just capitalism. He was arrested under a law that made it legal to pass out leaflets that were not politically based. Essentially, it allowed for the distribution of political or protest material, but commercial activity was banned. There was never any allegations of misleading information. There was never any allegations of harassment. And so on its surface, this is an easy win for our friend, the submarine owner. Because the government is not going to meet that strict scrutiny test, right? There's not going to be compelling government interest in not allowing people to know how much a submarine costs or going to see a submarine cost. But the court said, actually, commercial speech is like obscenity. Commercial speech is like incitement. Commercial speech is like fighting words. It is not protected speech. And therefore, the government has a wide range of, they can regulate it pretty widely. And this is the quote that they have. I don't expect you guys to remember it. But it's a historical argument, right? When James Madison sat down to write the First Amendment to try and assure this anti-federalists that the new federal government would not infringe on their right to speech, they weren't talking about the government's ability to regulate commerce, the ability to regulate things that had no political, societal, or religious value. All right, so let's define commercial speech really quick. It is defined as speech where the speaker is more likely to be engaged in commerce, where the intended audience is commercial or actual or potential consumers, and where the content of the message is commercial in nature. So it was entitled to some but not full protection. We'll get into that in a little bit. But after the initial case that said that there was no protection for purely commercial speech, that was later overturned in a case called Virginia Board of Pharmacy. Again, don't expect you to remember that, just it helps me. And it said that the free exchange of commercial drug prices was constitutionally protected speech because it allowed consumers to have access to truthful information, and that had societal value as envisioned by the First Amendment at the time it was written. And most of the time, this is incredibly easy, right? Frosted Mini Wheats, they're going to have a commercial during a football game, and the intent is to, isn't our cereal great? You should buy our cereal as opposed to Frosted Flakes or Golden Grams. Really easy, really simple. It's not always quite that simple. So I'm going to show you, because I do want to show this clip, even though it's not working right now. I do apologize. For whatever reason, it only works, it happens when I try to play it in. Okay, so let me give you some context for what I'm about to show you. My weird thing is running, right? And for those of you who don't run, it makes sense that you think kind of all running shoes are the same. Buy something from Dick's Sporting Goods, you go out and run. But there is a lot of discussion in the running community about what shoes are best. Should you get stability shoes or lightweight shoes or racing flats, or should you get Nike or Adidas or Puma, right? And different athletes are sponsored by different shoe companies. And in 2017, Nike released a shoe called the Vaporflies. The Vaporflies were a carbon-plated shoe. They had a carbon plate in them. They had incredibly light foam. And the argument that they had was, this is going to make you 4% faster. So if you can run a mile in 6 minutes, you put on these shoes, you will do the same effort, same conditions, same everything. You're going to run that same mile in 5:40, whatever 4% of that is, or 4% reduction. That's a big deal, right? And so for what they did in order to promote this new shoe is the current world record for the marathon at the time was 2:02:57. And they got 3 of the best runners in the world, and they got them on a Formula One track in Monza, and they said, we're going to try and break the 2-hour marathon barrier. We're going to try and make a human being run under 2 hours for that distance. They compared it to Roger Bannister's 4-minute mile. And they released and they made a full-length documentary about this. I'm about to show you a clip from it, and I want you guys to look at it, and I want you guys to be thinking, is this a documentary entitled to the full gamut of First Amendment protection, including protection against misleading information and consumer protection and all these other things? Or is it a commercial? Is it just a fancy long commercial? So, let's see.
It's picking the goal that you think is impossible. It was just like the 4-minute mile. Why should it matter? Humans have 10 fingers, they like even multiples. That's probably part of this.
Well, I guess all of these records are arbitrary in a sense. It's just because they become the next step in our sort of sporting heritage and development.
And I think that's where the 2-hour thing comes from. Why shouldn't we be able to do this?
58, 59, 60, 61, 62. Hey!
If a human body can do sub 2 hours, I think it would be the greatest moment in athletics.
Nice job, Elisa.
Okay, we have 1 minute. 1 minute till the start.
When you plot out world records, it should take a couple decades to get to where we want to be. But no one's ever gone flat out from the gun before. That's what I think is so amazing about this project, is we're going to tell these guys, you're going to go for it from the gun. And whatever happens, happens. And that, I feel, is a recipe for greatness.
I'm 100% confident in the science. 100% confident this is mathematically possible and humans can do this. If it was easy, it'd be done.
There's no hiding from the clock. We're going to send you a long way, about as long and as hard as we think is physiologically possible. And we're going to see if you can do it or not.
Very nice, Elliot. Great job. Go on, today. Nearly there now.
It's about human endeavour. Why would you try to climb Everest? Why would you try to go to the moon? It's about the journey. It's about learning what our capabilities are.
Sorry about the technical issues. So Alice, to answer your question, does that, making it illegal, does that impose a limitation on racers? And no, we're not talking about the actual use of the shoes itself. We're talking about advertising. Right? And so the question is that this was an hour-long documentary. It was put on National Geographic, commercial-free consideration provided by Nike. It is now on Disney+. So let's look at it both ways, right? This is a commercial. Let's say this is a commercial, this is commercial speech, and therefore entitled to less constitutional protection than a typical documentary. From that capacity, why is Nike making this? At its real core, why is Nike making this documentary? Why is Nike paying a bunch of East Africans to try and run around a Monza track? Because, they probably paid Eliud Kipchoge and Xerxes Etedesa and the Ethiopian, I cannot remember. Anyway, it's going to come to me at the end of class. It's going to bother me. But they paid probably several $1 million for this to happen. All said and done. Now, did they do that? And the I'm going to say cynical, overtly capitalist argument would be that they did that so they could sell more shoes. And they've sold a lot of shoes. These shoes cost $250, and you cannot find them anywhere because of how much of a demand they are. On the other end of the spectrum, you can say that this is almost a societal experiment. They're trying to push the limits of human exertion, human endeavor, the ability for humans to endure suffering and technological advances, right? This is a science experiment that they want to share with the world. Now, on a personal level, I think that this is probably a commercial, right? Especially considering the fact that they put it on National Geographic, where you typically sell commercials and didn't charge for it. Pretty good indication that there's a pecuniary or financial interest in getting this documentary out there. It's not solely. I don't think it can be said that it's a solely commercial thing. What about product placement? Is product placement commercial? Is it when athletes are sponsored? Are athletes saying Nike is the best shoe because Nike is paying their bills, or because they really believe Nike is the best shoe for them? And that has societal interest, right? Like, what professional athletes believe is the best about a particular product is going to have impact beyond just the simple exchange of goods and services. What happens when corporations get involved in social justice? When Nike, or let's take the NBA, right? The NBA. That's actually very bad because NBA is entertainment, probably entitled to more protection. Let's take something like Toyota. If Toyota puts out a statement about social justice, or says Black Lives Matter, or things of that nature, it's obviously a political statement. But is Toyota doing that because they have a real, does Toyota Corporation have a real interest in social justice? Maybe. It's possible. I don't know the people at Toyota. Or are they doing it for financial reasons? Are they doing it because they think it'll make them money? So these lines are really starting to get blurred. Maybe they always have been, but it's something that I've noticed recently. And so determining speech where the speaker is more likely to be engaged in commerce, where the intended audience is commercial or actual or potential consumers, and where the content of the message is commercial in nature. That is a very broad definition for something that is very difficult to actually decipher. And so one of the things that I think will need to happen and should happen in the next several years is figuring that out. Okay. So if it is found to be commercial, right? So we got commercial speech. Let's say Nike's Breaking Two documentary is commercial speech. If it is considered false or misleading, it can be punished even if it is said without actual malice or negligence. So if you don't look at the fault of the speaker, when we're looking at things like libel and defamation, we look at what is the intent of the speaker when they made this statement, or with what level of fault did they act? Were they negligent in not doing the proper research? Did they make an honest mistake? Here we are looking at the content of the message itself in isolation and in a vacuum. Is that information false or misleading? If it is, then it can be regulated, it can be banned. Or even if true, if it is advertising involving illegal activity contrary to public interest, it is not protected. Essentially, are you advertising illegal things? Recreational marijuana is illegal in the state of North Carolina. So the only way people can get marijuana is through illegal means. It's for recreational purposes. If they do that, if I am a drug dealer and I think I have the best prices in town for marijuana, and I take out a newspaper ad saying, I don't know what drug prices are, but assume they're good, right? Take out an ad on Fox 8 during the Panthers game. Now, is it false or misleading? No. I got pot. I'm going to sell it at this price. You're going to come to me, and I'm going to sell it for you at what I consider fair market value. But it's illegal activity. Therefore, it can be banned. And what you have here, and again, I'm not going to try and play it because it's being annoying, is, does anybody know what the Silk Road was?
Wasn't it how China and like Europe kind of connected through trade?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
The Silk Road, I believe it was like a historical road built back, I want to say in the the Chinese era that connected like European trade and Chinese trade, mainly like sugar, gunpowder, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And silk. And so it was named after the Silk Road, right? So historically it was, and it was primarily to it was China, and I believe the actual Silk Road was down to like what was considered Arabia at the time. silks and spices and everything went up the Silk Road. But in modern parlance, the Silk Road was a website that was essentially the eBay for illegal stuff. Most of it was used for drugs, right? People were buying and selling ecstasy and cocaine and marijuana. There were also reports, although not entirely confirmed, of being able to do things like order a hitman or buy people, right? Human trafficking was allegedly done via the Silk Road. And on the dark web, which I still don't really understand, but apparently sounds like edgy, I guess. But on the dark web, whatever the heck that is, there were advertisements for the Silk Road. It said, come to the Silk Road, and you can buy guns and drugs and everything else. You pay via Bitcoin, and everything is kept entirely anonymous. All that was true, but they couldn't advertise for the Silk Road on traditional means. They couldn't advertise for it on Google because they were advertising for illegal activity, illegal products. Okay, so I'm not totally sad that we're not able to watch this, but if the speech is not false, misleading or related to unlawful activity, the state has the ability to regulate it only if the following is met. Number one, the state must have a substantial interest in restricting the commercial speech. Now, that is not a compelling interest. It's just got to be substantial. Number two, the restriction directly advances the interests involved. And the restriction is not more extensive than necessary to serve that interest. So let's take something like commercial drug advertising. Now, we've all seen these, right? We've all seen Lyrica commercials and Cymbalta commercials and, well, Butrin commercials. They're usually targeted towards the elderly, better or worse. And they all are, ask your doctor about blah, blah, blah for restless leg syndrome. If you watch these advertisements, they're usually about a minute long, about 15 seconds of all the cool things that this arthritis medication does. And then the other 45 seconds of that commercial is, and here's all the reasons it might kill you. Now, Lyrica, when they have these commercials, are not doing that out of the goodness of their heart to inform consumers about the dangers of their products. They're doing it because the FDA makes them. They're doing it because the FDA says, if you are going to have serious side effects and you want to advertise your product, you darn well better put that in the commercial. So let's walk it through. You're a government. You want to regulate, you don't want to ban commercial drug advertising altogether. Whether or not you could do that, I'm not entirely sure, but probably. Let's say you don't want to do that. What's the government interest in forcing these companies to give these disclaimers? What societal good does that serve? Oh, sorry, Aaron, yes, the Silk Road is a black market, essentially, just online. It's shut down now because the owner tried to kill somebody using the product, tried to hire a hitman on the Silk Road, and then was caught and arrested. Dread Pirate Roberts, if you're curious about it. Anyway, but substantial government interest in regulating commercial prescription drug. I mean, no, it's just informed population, right? These are dangerous drugs. At least have the potential to be dangerous drugs. So you want people to be informed as to their purpose and potential side effects. The restriction is no greater than necessary. You want people to be informed. You're going to force the drug companies to inform the public. And the restriction is not more extensive than necessary to serve that interest. That one's pretty easy as well. Now, I'm going to possibly a little bit ruin your childhood. Because watch the Flintstones growing up? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I sure as heck did. So this was an actual Flintstones commercial from I believe 1950s.
They sure work hard, don't they, Barney?
Yeah? I hate to see them work so hard.
Yeah, me too. Let's go around back where we can't see them.
Gee, we ought to do something, Fred.
Okay. How's about taking a nap?
Hey, I got a better idea. Let's take a Winston break.
That's it. Winston is the one filter cigarette that delivers flavor 20 times a pack. Winston's got that filter blend.
Yeah, Fred. Filter blend makes the big taste difference, and only Winston has it up front where it counts. Here, ahead of the pure white filter. Winston packs rich tobaccos specially selected and specially processed for good flavor in filter smoking.
Yeah, Barney, Winston tastes good like a cigarette should.
The Flintstones has been brought to you by Winston, America's best-selling, best-tasting filter cigarette.
Winston tastes good like a cigarette should.
Federal Trade Commission is responsible for regulating this stuff. Essentially, they are tasked with preventing deceptive and unfair trade practices and can sanction businesses that produce an advertisement that is likely to mislead consumers and affect consumer behaviors or decisions about the product or service. Essentially, is it misleading? Is it likely to cause injury to the public, the consuming public? If it is, government likely has a large ability to regulate it. So let's look at the Simpsons. Let's look at the Flintstones. Flintstones are, excuse me. The Flintstones are used to hawk cigarettes, Winston cigarettes. Now, why do we ban cigarette advertising in this country? The answer is pretty darn simple. Is there a public health risk to smoking cigarettes? Yes, there is. Again, it's legal in this country. You have the right to engage in unhealthy behaviors, right? There are bars, there are, you know, if we wanted to be safe all the time, we wouldn't allow alcohol and everybody would drive 15 miles an hour, right? Part of liberty and freedom is the ability to engage in practices that are self-harmful. But we as a society understand that there are societal costs to smoking. Increased healthcare costs, shorter lifespans, things like that. And so the substantial government interest is to stop people from smoking. How do we do that? We don't allow them to be advertised to. We don't allow advertisements to happen. Companies have billions of dollars in advertising revenue or advertising budgets because it works. People don't spend all that money on advertising because they think it doesn't do anything. And so the logic goes, if we allow people to market cigarettes, that they will be more likely to smoke. And so if we ban advertising of cigarettes, then people will be less likely to smoke, and therefore fewer people are smoking, and everybody's happy, allegedly. We're going to end class with a conversation about Instagram influencers. Now, does anybody know what an Instagram influencer is? Like, can tell me what an Instagram influencer is? Yeah.
Yes, I would find as somebody who is by advertisers products.
Great. So somebody who essentially, you know, it can be a job or an aspect of their job to promote particular products on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever happens to be. There was something that I saw that Cristiano Ronaldo, who's the soccer star, who I believe has the most Instagram followers in the world, can get paid something like $500,000 for just a single tweet or a single Instagram post. So it's big business, right? He has tens of millions of followers. He posts something that's a larger audience than pretty much everything except NFL games in the United States. Now, that is commercial speech. Buy this particular product. Hashtag blessed, hashtag best, hashtag whatever else, right? And I understand that makes me sound very old when I use hashtags, but I'm fine with it. The FTC, and one of my favorite things the FTC has recently done, has put out actual guidance for Instagram influencers in the United States. It essentially requires people who seek to make money on Instagram to do a couple of things. Number one, disclose the relationship, that there is a financial relationship, because there is a difference between, oh my God, you guys, I just went to get Krispy Kreme donuts and I love Krispy Kreme donuts and I just want to share that with the world because I love Krispy Kreme donuts. And Krispy Kreme donuts gave me a lifetime supply as long as I post about them whenever I get them. Or Krispy Kreme donuts gave me $1,000 to make this particular Instagram post. If it is the second, and there is a financial relationship that comes with the posting, then you need to disclose it, and you need to put what is not in here. You need to put hashtag advertisement. So if you go on Instagram, and it's actually what I find interesting when I don't spend a ton of time on Instagram, but when I do go, and I follow a couple of famous people, they're mostly runners, that's my weird sporting niche. They'll say, I love this particular shoe, Nike Strong, whatever else, and then it'll say hashtag ad. And that is so that people are aware that there is a financial relationship between the poster and the product that is being talked about. And that's okay. But this is not something that only applies to companies. It is something that it can apply to anybody engaged in the act of commercial speech. Anybody have any questions about commercial speech? It's pretty easy, actually. There's not a ton of case law on it. It is essentially, is what you're saying true? Is it possibly misleading? Is it possible to harm consumers? And to kind of finish up that Frosted Mini Wheats commercial, Kellogg's ended up paying a multi-million-dollar fine for that advertisement. Kim Kardashian, with her dumb little Skechers step-up shoes from a few years ago, had to pay a couple of $1 million to the FTC. Vitamin water, same thing. Now, Coca-Cola owns vitamin water. Do they really care about a couple $1 million? Yeah, probably not. It's like one advertisement in the Super Bowl, maybe. But it's not chump change at the same time. So that is commercial speech. And that is our final lecture, I guess, for a couple of weeks, because you guys have off Wednesday. I do hope you enjoy your well-deserved short break. I know that I will. Be on the lookout for that video on Monday. Please watch it, and then please spend most of Monday preparing for it. Normally, I would really like to have you guys in here and do it in person. That's what I prefer, but it's just not an effective way to do this. And be on the lookout for sign-up sheets for Wednesday so we can get all those done. All right, I appreciate you guys, and I will see you soon, I guess.